Hello and welcome to another exclusive interview by Recovery Today magazine at recoverytodaymagazine.com, where the first and foremost, we are a magazine of hope and recovery. And whether you're considering addiction or recovery for yourself, a loved one, or you're actively trying to find recovery and you've been struggling for years, we want you to know that every topic that we talk about is related to addiction, recovery, happy living, successful, sober living, right here at Recovery Today. My name is Brandon Holt. I'm a correspondent of Recovery Today magazine, and welcome to the segment of Be a Hope Dealer. Be a Hope Dealer. And I want you guys to know it's going down today like you've never seen before. I got one of the coolest, most exceptional individuals that I've ever met in my life. Had the pleasure of knowing this person for 7 years. Her resume is so extensive, I couldn't even read everything. She's listed in Psychology Today magazine, American Counseling Association. She's a member of NADAC, which stands for the National Association of Drug and Alcohol Abuse Counselors. She's the vice chairman of the Certified Texas Board of Addictions Professional. Excellent counselor. Man, this lady is inspirational. She's a leader. She's remarkable. And we just can't get enough of her. And I said, we got to have her on the show. So our guest that I'm getting ready to introduce you to has a story that is just an emotional story. It's just tear-jerking. It just grabs you from your spirit. And she has a journey as a Texas Department of Criminal Justice. She was an offender when she was younger in her earlier years in life. And now, she made it from an offender to a counselor to a director of the prison substance abuse program. And now she owns her own practice, her counseling practice that we'll get into a little bit later. Everybody, if you would, help me welcome Carol J. Nunn to the show. Good to have you, Carol J. Nunn.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Carol, I've read your story. I know you personally. I met you, what do we meet, like 7-8 years ago?
Pretty much. Yep.
I was a young buck in school and had no clue what I was doing, trying to learn how to become a drug counselor. And you pulled me out. You hired me into the prison as an intern. And then what really stayed with me today is that you worked with me. You cussed me out. You chewed me out. But you worked with me and helped me get to the level of supervisor. And so, I'll just never forget, all the great things that you've done. And one thing that you've done is you were the one that helped me come out with my opioid use disorder, because I was trying to hide it and I didn't want people to know, but you were the one that I give credit to. So thank you for being my mentor and a mentor of so many people. And so, Carol, we just want to give you the floor. Tell us a little of who you are. Tell us about your story.
Well, I guess we can start off with September 17th, which is my clean date, 1994. But let's look at the day before that, because that's the most important day. That was the day that led me to be where I am today. I was in a hopeless state, a hopeless mind, a hopeless body. 10 o'clock a.m. on a Friday, if you can just visualize that. A Friday is when everything starts to pop off. But 10 o'clock a.m. on a Friday morning, I surrendered. And I realized I wasn't raised this way. I wasn't raised to live like this. And I made a decision to make a phone call. I had been up 4 days straight. And I called someone that I met 3 months prior and said, I need some help. I had been using cocaine for 4 days in a motel room. Visualized 4 days straight of using coke. So my last day, I'm looking in a mirror at myself. And I get emotional just thinking about it. I wanted to die, too much of a coward to do it. So I wanted to use drugs to make that happen. With that being said, 4 days straight using coke, smoking on a pipe, man, I thought my life was over. I called someone. They sent some people to come and pick me up and took me to treatment. I wanted to stop dying. And I wanted to kill myself. I don't know if anybody can relate, but I think everybody in this audience can relate to that personally or know someone that has experienced it. I'm sure you related to that, Brandon. So I got to a point where I was just sick and tired of doing what? being sick and tired.
That's just saying, that's your line.
Hey, man, I called somebody and they sent some people to take me to treatment. I had a little brown paper bag like everybody does, you know, and they took me and I admitted myself in treatment for 90 days. But prior to that, my life was a roller coaster, man. I wasn't raised that way, but I made the conscious decision to put drugs in my body. And when I did that, it took off like a rocket, man. It affected me, and it affected so many people in my lives, especially my son. I couldn't take care of him and support my drug addict at the same time.
So when you took those drugs for the very first time, how did your body react to that?
Well, the first time, I didn't react at all because, as you know, when people turn you on to drugs, they're turning you on to get you addicted or turning you on to get your money. So you're not going to really feel the effect that you really need to feel, you know. So after I did it that day, I was like, I want to know what this is really like. So me being the ignorant person that I was of the streets, I went and got some.
And then after that, it progressed from there.
Oh, man, did it ever. It took a 2-year period from start to finish.
So, Carol, okay, so I know that you're from Gary, Indiana. At least that's what you're playing, Gary, Indiana.
Born and raised.
Born and raised.
Yeah.
And you had an extensive history of drug use in your earlier years in life. Then you fell into the criminal justice system. You know, you did some things that violated the law. But I noticed in your bio, it was really cool that after 3 years of sobriety, you decided to make the transition from offender to sober, and now you got into the counseling field, substance abuse counseling, and then you became a program director of an actual substance abuse program. Can you tell us what that transition was like?
Well, so when I graduated from high school, initially I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to be a clinical psychologist, child psychologist. I wanted to work with children to understand what their mind went through as they were growing up, being abused, being neglected. So I've always wanted to work in the field of psychology and counseling. Well, it got more specific for me for substance abuse when my own addiction took off. And so I changed the focus of what I wanted to do. However, when I got clean, I went back to school. My focus was still mental health. So I received a mental health certificate from Waco Community College, McLennan Community College, actually. And once I received that certificate, I started working in prison. Now, some people may say, you can't work in prison and be an offender. Well, let me explain my story, okay? Right. I was released from prison in 1990, okay? I had a 15-year sentence for delivery of a controlled substance, less than a gram of cocaine, 15 years, first offense. Yeah. Kind of swallow that first.
And before you go any further, when you heard that sentence, what went on in your head, Carol?
I was scared, man. First of all, I had a public defender, and you know how public defenders are. They're going to tell you, well, this is the best deal I can get for you, so you better take it or you might get 25 years or, so this is my first experience on something like this. So I'm thinking he knows what he's talking about. Hindsight. And I know I would have tried to bargain, a little bit less time. But that didn't happen, man. So I took the 15 years and, people were telling me in jail, well, you're only going to do 18 months, so you're not going to be there that long. And that was true. I wasn't there that long. But it was still a 15-year sentence. So after I was...
You were on parole after that?
13 years of parole. Reporting once a month. Now, mind you, this was in 91. My clean date, September 17th, 94, so you do the math.
Right,
when I got out of prison, I stayed clean for a minute, but who makes it off of minimum wage? But that's what we tell our clients to do. When you get out of prison, get a job. Minimum wage, you can do better. Yeah, that's true if you have support and help. But again, I'm from Gary, Indiana. So my family's there. I didn't want them to know everything that I was going through and burden them with my problems. So I tried to make it, but the end result was I started back selling drugs again. And then I became my best customer again. Mm. So with that being said, I started using. I didn't get clean until September 17th of 94. I don't count the 16th because that's the day I used. I count the 17th. I didn't count any prison time because I wasn't going to no meetings. I wasn't working no steps in prison, you know. So some people do that, though, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. You know, you said something, Carol, that really stood out to me about how you were released from prison, got on parole, you know, you entered into the field, the counseling field, but you started selling drugs again. And tell us about the environmental factors of drug use. Some children, they grow up in environments where, you know, you have a liquor store across the street, you know, a drug house this way or so forth. And it's like some kids don't have a shot at growing up in a peaceful environment. So what kind of, did you have any environmental factors that kind of pushed you into the drug and the crime game?
I can say I had zero environmental factors. The way I was raised, my mother and father worked hard to keep 6 children with clothes and shoes and food, you know, on the table. They were very seldom home because they worked a lot. So with 6 kids at home, you know, we still had chores. We had to do things that we needed to do, of course. However, I didn't start even using, I think high school is when I smoked my first joint. And I only did it because I had a friend that smoked weed. So I wanted to kind of hang out with that friend. And so I would fake like I was smoking, but I'd hit the joint and blow it out. But unbeknownst to me, I still got high off the joint. I didn't inhale. So that's kind of stuff.
Yeah. And as a woman with, you know, a history of criminal activity, there's like a stigma, you know, that's placed in a stereotype on women. And so how has that stigma, how has that shaped you today into the wonderful person that you've become?
Well, again, I wasn't raised to be in the life of addiction and crime. My parents, I went to church every Sunday. You know, there was just no factors in my environment. We were in a good home. I made the decision. When I moved out, when I moved away, you know, that first person that influenced me on that cocaine, because I didn't even live in a neighborhood where that was even happening. You know, it just so happens that a friend of mine had invited a friend over. And so with that, hey, you want to get high? Sure, why not? And that's where it took off.
So kind of like from curiosity, peer pressure.
Yep.
You know, do you see that it's the same today with our children today? Maybe the environment is different, but is the peer pressure, is it on the same levels when you were coming up, or is it on a whole nother level?
It's a whole nother level. You know, I didn't hang out with the crowd that got high, that broke the law, that skipped school. I didn't hang out with those type of kids. So I didn't really see it. I wasn't exposed to it because I went to class every day. I got good grades in school. So I didn't hang around those kind of kids. Not to say that they weren't there, but I went to a pretty good school as well. You know, so I didn't have that experience. I made all these choices on my own once I left home, out on my own.
Okay. Yeah. You know, Carol, let's kind of shift gears. I know that the criminal justice system, especially with the coronavirus that is now just taking over not just the city or the neighborhood, but the world. The criminal justice system is starting to release offenders, namely those who are at risk, like those who are elderly, those with chronic health conditions, releasing them back into the community because, you know, as you know, in the prisons, you have the enclosed cell blocks. It's all so it's going to stop the risk of spreading this virus. So based on your background, you've been in prison, you've been out of prison, you know the system in and out from a professional standpoint. What are your thoughts on this plan of action? Like, should we as the public be concerned?
Well, of course we should be concerned. This is new information to me, and so it surprises me that this would happen for that very reason, because if they are being released into the public, where are they being released? Is it a place that is quarantined to where they can be on this 14-day quarantine like they're expecting everyone else in the community to be. You know, so it really depends on where they're being released. They being the people that are coming out of prison. Are they going to a family member? Are they going to a facility? Where are they going? And so we first have to look at that to find out, is this a more serious risk than we think it is?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so, and also kind of to piggyback on top of that, it's like everybody's panicking right now. You know, mm-hmm. you have the coronavirus, and you look at people have anxiety, they got fear, they're scared, paranoia, hysteria, and you're skilled. Like, you went to school, you have 2 master's degrees, one in psychology, one in professional counseling. You're a licensed chemical dependency counselor. You're a licensed professional counselor. You're a licensed registered sex offender counselor. You provide treatment, and you have all of these skills to help you help people. So let's talk a little bit about co-occurring disorders. Okay? People are in a panic. Everything. I mean, Carol, you got people unemployed out there with no jobs, getting laid off, financial hardship, social isolation. These are triggers for relapse. Right. This is what we teach our clients, to be aware of people, places, and things, internal triggers, external triggers. So spend a few minutes and kind of give us some suggestions for those who are struggling in this moment, this present moment today.
So keep in mind, I have 25 years clean in recovery. I still go to 12-step meetings as a therapist with 3 licenses in the state of Texas, numerous certifications. That doesn't exempt me from using drugs and alcohol. What helps me is to, first of all, not give power to any problems that I might experience in my life, but take a look at them one step at a time. I don't mean the 12 steps, because that helps also, but just looking at it from the perspective of, I can get through this. So what I tell new people, because I get calls still, people, you know, with us being on this quarantine, I'm still seeing clients. I'm very careful. You know, if you go on my website, you'll see my Lysol and my wipes and, you know, everything available. I have a sign on my door: if you're sick, please don't come in. Wash your hands before you enter. You know, I have a big pump of sanitizer right there at my door. But what I tell new people, and what the public needs to know right now, is that there are websites that new people can go to, or anyone can go to, and go to a meeting. So all they have to do is go to AA or NA or CA or any A online and search online meeting. And it's a forum there where they can actually talk to somebody. Another tool people really don't know about, especially one with co-occurring disorders, is they can call the crisis hotline. Of course, I'm specifically speaking of Houston because I volunteered there many years ago, and we received a lot of calls from people who are on the verge of going to use, who their mental health was at a risk of plummeting depression, and they have a place to call to speak with someone. So people are just a phone call away, but that phone is heavy, and so it's real heavy, and so unless they pick it up and dial the number, they can't get the help that they need. And they have to do it. They have to do it over and over and over again. Keep calling like they did the dope man, like they did the liquor stores, to find out what was open, where the dope was. They have to do a recovering person the same way. Keep calling until someone picks up the phone.
So you're saying have the same enthusiasm and motivation that you had when you got your dope or when you sold your dope to go out and help your mental health.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you see
it's
it
a lot of work.
Do you see it getting any better, Carol, or do you see it getting worse before it gets better?
What now? Seeing what get better?
As far as the stresses that people are really going through right now, and these triggers for relapse, people are home all day. You know, and that's one of the things we teach is isolation is a huge trigger. So I'm sitting at home, nothing to do, can't go anywhere. You know, I can drink, I can smoke, Is it going to get better, or is it going to be this way for a minute?
Well, you know, I really can't say, Brandon. I think that it's going to stay stagnant because we have to get the information out to the public. You know, if the public doesn't know that there are resources that they can use while they're at home, then they're just going to continue to be socially isolated. But of course, that's what they want us to do anyway, to socially isolate ourselves to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. With that being said, people are at home eating, watching TV, playing on their phone, but hopefully they're going to go on Facebook or Instagram and see some kind of post that says, hey, if you need to talk, if you need a meeting, call this number, log into this website. And so that's going to spread. Just like the information about this virus is spreading, that information in the recovery arena should spread as well.
Is the counseling field different today than it was 20 to 30 years ago?
Well, I don't believe it's just evolving. You know, they're coming out with more and more drugs, different type of drugs. They're changing the chemicals in the drugs, and kids especially are becoming more addicted to these drugs than ever before. You're getting a younger and younger age of children now, teens, you know, using drugs, selling drugs, taking drugs to school, you know, and some kid may overdose on some drugs. Other kids may see them, and they'll laugh at it because they think it's funny. Ah, look at George down there, man. He's shaking. He's foaming at the mouth, you know, and that's what they do. I've seen it, you know, and it's unfortunate when I show videos at my practice of accidents, teens in accidents, and teens are looking at these videos. Oh, man, they laugh at it. Oh, that fool should have been paying attention, you know, that type of thing. So they're not taking these things serious, but it takes the parent to help guide them in the right direction, you know, for them to take it serious.
And CBD and THC, can you explain what the difference is between the two? Because it seems to be a huge debate, you know, CBD, THC, legalized, this is for medicinal purposes. Explain to our audience, what is the difference between the two, and what are your thoughts on the CBD, THC kind of debate? Well,
let's first of all clarify something, because there is some level of THC in CBD, okay? And I can attest to that because I just met with a client who violated DOT driving laws by testing positive. He was ingesting CBD. However,
DOT meaning what for the viewers?
Department of Transportation.
Okay, all right.
So I'm a SAP, which is a substance abuse professional, and you have to have a SAP certification in order to provide a drug assessment or alcohol assessment to anyone that is in a safety-sensitive job, meaning a pilot, truck driver, engineer of a train, working out in the field. If they have a safety-sensitive job, they have to take a substance abuse assessment if they violate. With that being said, I just did an assessment on a young man that came in my office. He said he was doing CBD, and he tested positive for THC. So he said he didn't know he was taking it for pain for his leg. I said, well, now you have to do this assessment. And so the DOT sent out a big mass email letting people know that they're taking the CBD oil. They could test positive for THC as well. So for whatever reasons you're taking CBD, you may want to go to a doctor and get something prescribed that can relieve your pain instead of going to these little shops, you know, buying this CBD.
And what should parents look for, Carol, in their children? Because it seems like the drug inventors and drug dealers are getting more and more creative. What are some signs that a parent can say, you know, something is wrong with my child or something is wrong with my family member? What can you share a couple of those signs?
Well, sometimes when your children change, you know, when they're typically outgoing or always around the family, in the living room or the family room watching TV or out in the open, and now they're isolating in their room, or they seem agitated or snap, you know, when you ask them certain questions, these are the beginning of the signs. But sometimes there are no signs at all that you can really pick up on unless you're really keen to being able to pick up on these signs. You know, when they start acting out in school, when they're not bringing home progress reports, or, you know, their grades start to decline, or the type of friends that you see them hanging out with have changed. Those are all signs that you need to pay attention to.
Okay. And I used drugs to function. When I was in my addiction, I needed it just to function. What
Right.
can you say to the average working American or person who, you know, they have a job, they have a family, they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing, but life has gotten so difficult, they have to use these drugs, these mood-altering substances, just to navigate through life?
Well, what I can tell my clients is that even people that are in recovery, sometimes people in recovery will not take medication because they want to stop using everything. Well, I don't suggest that. As a recovering person, I don't suggest that. If there's some type of problem that you're experiencing that requires some type of medication to go along with treatment, to go along with counseling, then I recommend that. You know, so people that are using mood-altering substances illegally, I recommend that they go and see a therapist, go and see a doctor, and not just your primary care physician going in and say, I feel depressed or I'm dealing with anxiety, you know, can you prescribe me some Xanax? It's not that simple. You know, you need to actually go and see a psychiatrist, you know, to talk about the actual symptoms that you're experiencing in order for them to prescribe the right medication.
And you make a good point about taking medication as opposed to self-medicating. What's the difference between the two? If I self-medicate or I'm taking prescribed medicine, what does that mean?
Well, when you're self-medicating, you're doing just that. You know, you're not following the doctor's orders, and typically you could be putting yourself in danger because you don't know how much you should be taking. You know, you don't know. And then when it's an illegal substance, that even adds to the problem. So it's always good to consult with a doctor, consult with a therapist. And in my practice, if someone comes in, I've had clients come in and want me to prescribe the medication. That's out of my scope of practice. I don't prescribe medication, but I will recommend you see a psychologist so that they can make the right assessment to determine the type of medication that you need. That is the difference between self-medicating and then seeking a doctor in order to get prescribed the medication that could assist you with the symptoms you may be experiencing. But medication alone isn't going to solve the problem, Brandon.
So like Suboxone and Methadone that are legal if you take it within the doctor's prescription, but it's just as addictive as other mood-altering substances. So what if there's a person out there, Carol, I'm addicted to this Suboxone, this Methadone, but I need it so I can keep my job, but I can't get off of it. What am I supposed to do?
Well, you go back and talk to your doctor, you know, but the main key, Brandon, is to be honest about your symptoms. That's the main key. If you're not honest about your symptoms and then you don't have the wherewithal to do what you need to do, like using coping skills, the medication alone isn't going to help. There's other things that you have to do. And so those are the things that people aren't willing to do. They just want the one quick fix, which is the medication. That's not it. There's other things that you can do.
Carol, your story is just so amazing, Carol. I want to know, how do you stay motivated? Because you got a lot coming at you. Where do you find your peace and serenity?
Man, I think for my mom and dad, my dad, may God rest his soul, that was my guy. Man, I get emotional just thinking about it, and it's coming up on a year, May 16th, that he passed away. And, you know, I always think about him. He always encouraged me. He was the one guy unconditionally that would just be, you know, have my back, push me, you know. And my mom now, her being in hospice, and she's suffered from stage 4 cancer. I talk to her FaceTime. Skype rather, and you know, she tries to feed me her food, you know. I said, give me a bite of that, you know. And so that's what really keeps me going. My mom, my dad, my family here at home, my son, you know, he calls me all the time and, you know, tells me about his day. But what I really want to do, Brandon, is before I leave this earth, is to provide all the help that I can to anybody and everybody. May it be someone that's trying to become a new counselor. I just received a message on Messenger from a lady. She asked me, there's someone here in Houston that is just getting their license. Can I help guide them and let them know what they need to do to become prepared for the exam? I have a lot of study material, man, and I have a lot of knowledge, and I try to share that with everybody that I can.
Carol, we're really, really proud of you, and now you've transitioned, you retired. Are you too young to retire?
Yes. Can't you tell?
you retired, and now you've accumulated all of your experience and you've launched this very successful operation here in Houston. Tell us about what Carol Nunn is doing now.
Wow. I'm not retired, Brandon, that's for sure. I just don't work for a corporation anymore, and I'm really excited about what I'm doing today because my practice, which is VAST Counseling Services, VAST, I chose that name for the company because I want to cover everything that I can. Mental health, substance abuse, alcoholism, parenting, anger management. I want to help everybody, and by having my practice, anybody can reach me. And if it's within my scope, I'm going to provide that service. I still see clients every day. I just have guidelines that I follow in order to keep my office safe. Because I don't want to risk myself. I don't want to risk my family. And I don't want to risk the people, cause a risk to the people that are coming into my office. So I just want to provide all the services I can. I have recovering people calling me from a recovery standpoint. One thing I don't do, Brandon, is counsel people that are in recovery, friends that I know. I'm going to come to you from a recovery standpoint. If you have a mental health issue, behavioral health issue, or some other type of issue that you want to seek counseling for, if you're a friend of mine, I'm going to refer you to someone else. I want the boundary to be firm. I don't want to sugarcoat anything. And coming from a criminal justice background, I use the cognitive approach, so I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. And just to backtrack on when you first talked about when I work with you, I never cursed you out, Brandon.
I may have embellished a little bit, Carol. So I know I used to get called in your office. I said, "Oh boy, what did I do?"
It's like going into the principal's office. And
then that's right. So where do you see VAST Counseling Services in the next couple of years? Because it seems like it's really intact. Everything is going well. But where do you see the company in a couple of years?
Well, I don't want to branch out into a large, entity. I like my office. I like the space. I just would prefer to, hopefully, right now I'm getting credentialed with insurance companies. I want to be able to help clients that don't have the financial means, to provide the service. But with that being said, I'm comfortable where I am. I'm not stagnant. I don't think that it won't grow because it will. It's continued to grow every day. But I'm about 15 minutes from home, so my travel isn't that far. I used to drive an hour to work every day and an hour and a half home almost, stuck in traffic. So, my drive now is good. I love it. I can set my own hours, even though I'm still working 10 hours a day. It's what I love. I can sit in my office all day and just, do things on my computer, see clients, and I love it. It's not tasking for me at all.
And thank you, Carol, for being a hope dealer. Like you deal hope to people. And I'll never forget that you have two amazing talents. You're very talented. But you have two amazing things that have really always hit me, and that's your ability to sing. You have a voice of an angel, and you're a master storyteller. And before we go, we're going to give you one or two options to choose, to either sing one of your favorite songs, just a small portion.
Not going to happen.
Tell us a story. I always remember the chicken and the eagle, but maybe you have another story that trumps that, just an abbreviated version. So choose one, Carol, and tell us which. Help us out.
Look, Brandon, when I was in school working on my second master's degree, I had to do this YouTube video, right? And it's still up there, and it was for a cultural diversity class. And my son helped me with it, and I'm so grateful that he did because, I don't know, I'm not that tech savvy. So I wrote a spoken word, and I'm going to just give you a piece of it. I'm not going to sing, but I'm going to give you a piece of this spoken word, right?
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Who goes from being in the womb to being behind bars, traveling on bicycles, buses, and cars, caught up in the fog, lost, no direction, confused, drugged, addicted, and abused from a small city place? Which road to take? How did that road end up in TDCJ? Doing time is the consequence of breaking the law. Who would have ever thought I had so many flaws? I'm going to stop right there. If you want to watch the video, Google it. It's on YouTube.
Hey, describe Carol Nunn in one word.
Ambitious, motivated, driven, God-fearing, grateful.
Any final words, Carol, to our audience?
Anybody, Brandon, can stop using, lose the desire to use drugs and alcohol, and find a new way to live.
Well, everybody, here you have it, Carol Nunn. Carol, thank you so much. We're humbled, we're grateful that you came on our show today. This is Be a Hope Dealer, Carol Nunn, talking all things recovery, sobriety, love, joy, peace, and happiness. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.